Okay. I think it will be good to start the meeting now. We have some participants who want to learn more about the courses Professor Aernoudt is going to lecture. Maybe it will be good to invite them here and they, for example, start asking questions. But before inviting them here and hearing their questions, Rudy, what about you share a little bit about yourself and also share your book, for example, which currently is in the stores on entrepreneurship. And it will be good why we need certified experts on European entrepreneurial policies, and what
Yeah.
are you aiming in the financial management course? Please, floor is yours.
Okay. I'll be short because I see that already some attendees raised their hand to raise questions.
Yeah.
So first of all, let me say, bypass, I accepted to collaborate and to be faculty member of the World Business Angel Investment Forum Business School. It's a big mouth because this is a quite unique thing, to this virtual occasion that we have to speak to everybody around the world and to explain how things work. And for me, if I first start with my certification course on enterprise policy, I'm more focused on European enterprise policy. It's because I always see entrepreneurs and they come to me and they say, okay, Europe, it's far away, but what exactly can we have from Europe? Can we have subsidies? What is Europe making as regulation that concerns us? And then, of course, consultants can find out subsidies, but that's not the question. For me, the question is to understand how Europe functions and not what you can read in the books, but I was myself for more than 20 years involved in the European Committee, in the European Social Committee, in the European Council, in the European Commission. So I'm really an inside guy. And I want to explain how you understand how Europe functions. And not by giving some theoretical abstract theory, but simply by applying to one field, which is the field which is most interesting for entrepreneurs, namely enterprise policy. And it's not only about money. Of course, you know that, in fact, now that the next period from 2021, so and 10 then starts onwards, there's 2.4 trillion budget from Europe. But more important is that 85% are taken at European level. So, and all those regulations are at the same time, if I can copy Monder, risks, but at the same time, it's opportunities. Take GDPR, the whole data regulation. Well, this could be a business model. Take everything what we are doing now in the field of online regulation. This could be a business model. So I could give thousands of examples. And the idea is that I want to give to the students not something like at the end a vademecum of all the subsidies that exist, but how to apply Europe into your own business model. So how does Europe decide? What do we mean by entrepreneurship? What do we do to stimulate entrepreneurship? What are the kind of things that Europe can do for you? And what can be Europe as it's a big public procurement system, there are regulations. And so trying to find out and to explain how it works. And so the aim would be that at the end of my course, that people can look into that without losing time on different websites saying, if I want to do something together with Europe, or if one or other implementation of Europe can be for me business model, how should I approach? And therefore, I'm going to explain how it works, what we do in the field of venture capital. Venture capital, by the way, 40% is public capital. What we do in the field of business angels, financing business angel networks, for instance, how you have access to that. So very concretely, how does incubators, European incubators work? For whom is interesting? How do you start a company in another country than the country where you are born, where you're living? This kind of thing. So very practical, but rather giving the context and explaining how it works, so that this information at the end of the course is not something that will get obsolete soon, but that you will have for the rest of your life. That's in fact the whole idea behind the course. And yes, to come back what the Bible said. So this will be the, without the post-its, of course, this will be the Rus. It's a book of 2020,
Yeah.
which is called Entrepreneurship, No Guts, No Glory. But in fact, I say entrepreneurship for those who are, of course, the basis for the future of Europe and of the world. And then that book exactly how things work, and that's in fact the message.
So you are going to use your own book like a course book too,
Yes.
as a matter of fact, in the course. Rudy, if I am a startup in Africa, let's say in South Africa or in Singapore or in Argentina, and if I want to discover the opportunities of Europe, then I think when I join your course, I will learn how I am going to establish my business startup or scale up in Europe, and how I will benefit from the opportunities of the ecosystem of technoparks, of incubation centers, acceleration centers, venture capital, their mindset, very important, where the to which kind of startups European angel investors are investing, because
Yes.
you were one of the founders of EBAN, the European Business Angel Network, in 1999. And
Indeed.
you are now the senior economist at the European Union, and also lecturing at the universities in Belgium. So as a professor of entrepreneurship coming from fields and sharing your know-how and experience through education and living in the capital of Europe, in Brussels, I think your course will be very meaningful to especially to startups, entrepreneurs who want to understand the European entrepreneur ecosystem. But there is also one more opportunity, I think, in your course. If I am a consultant in South Africa, in Argentina, in Singapore, wherever, maybe I may like to help and support my ecosystem by presenting the opportunities of Europe and introducing this market to high growth businesses. I think it will also be good for experts and potential consultants who want to have more in-depth knowledge about Europe. Am I right or wrong?
No, you're right. It's not only by the way, it's not only for startups, it's even for instance, let's say you took the example of Africa. I've been quite a long time there when I was managing one laptop per child because we were in all African countries. But the idea, since is I have a company in Africa or in the United States or whatever, and I want to scale up to grow, and I'm looking to the European market. How do you understand the European market? Because every market is different. Or something else could be, of course, that if I'm responsible, say something for regional development in one region, wherever in the world, well, how do they approach it in Europe? So you can learn from all sides. So I think it's good for people considering entrepreneurship and looking what can be done and what should be avoided. Look at people who have started already and want to scale up or want to know what's the possibility as a starter. And for people who really want to understand Europe and try to explain to other companies what Europe can mean for them or cannot mean for them. I think both are very important. So indeed, it's at the same time, because I say always I'm a pragmatician, I'm a practical guy and an academician. So it's the two things together to give the context and to make it simple, understandable. And then afterwards, I think it's something that lasts as content. It's not something that changes. It's not, what are the subsidies for the course for next week? That's not the topic of the course. It's, as you say, a deep insight in the whole functioning in order to understand how to work and to avoid the wrong doors.
So we are going to deliver a proficiency test at the end of the course, 150 questions, to understand if they are really meeting the criteria of giving advice or consulting to third parties about Europe. And I think participants will be very lucky because they are meeting with you in person, and also they delivering the course from you in person. I think this is very important. Online, but it is also accepted as in person. And in this, after this proficiency tests, they will be certified by the WBA Business School as certified expert on European entrepreneurship policies. So as a matter of fact, not only for entrepreneurship, but also policies. So this is also, I think, good for trade and economy ministries of different governments. who are interested in developing or benchmarking other markets to develop some new policies for their countries. And they can directly have this knowledge from this course. The trade ministries or even the economy attaches of foreign affairs ministries departments, they can also benefit from this before becoming an ambassador or counselor in Europe. I think it will be good to have such kind of courses and learn the environment first, and then serve to their countries with this good knowledge. So the course is your course is like large spectrum antibiotic entrepreneurs, startups, policymakers, consultants. It is great. I want to invite now our participants to write their questions to chat box or Q&A box, and we read the questions from there. While they are writing their questions, could you please also give some information about the financial management in practice course, because you are also going to lecture this course too.
Yes, and that's in fact the course I'm lecturing as well at the University of Ghent. But I do it there at the final master, because it's not a theoretical course. It's a course where you understand the functioning of financial management, starting from cases. So what I'm always doing is start from a very easy case, which you work together, which of course becomes more complex. And from that case onwards, we understand together what is the best way of financing your company. So I will not tell you venture capital means ABC. I will have a case, and the case finally will lead to investments where you have involvement, for instance, from banks, from business angels, from venture capitalists, and then I'm going to explain. So it's a course, again, which at the same time combines a theoretical background, for which I'm going to use my book as well, because if you write your book yourself, it's very easy to explain it, because you didn't know exactly what's in the book. And at the same time, I'm going to use cases to illustrate every time. So it's a practical course, where of course the course is 7 times 2 hours. And I suspect and expect from students that between 2 courses, they work a bit on cases, and that together next time we can work on cases. So it's a very practical course for everybody who wants to know something about financing. For instance, somebody wants to know how to get my financing. Should I go to the stock exchange? Is a business angel something for me or not? Or should I simply go to the bank? How do I approach a venture capitalist? So this kind of things. And of course, I will tell you in this course as well, what are the different possibilities at European level for venture capital and business angels.
I see among the participants, for example, Ivan Jovetic, who is following us, because he is also, very in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. Let me give, Ivan, do you hear us?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
How are you? Regards
Fine.
to all.
Thank you. Thank you. I made a surprise and took you here. But do you have any question, Ivan? Do you think the course is interesting, first of all? And what is your idea?
Well, first of all, thank you all for giving the opportunity to all of us to and to give you comments very carefully the grand opening and today. Regarding your first question, I think that the courses are the actions and execution.
Ivan, I think we have
the WBA Business School will identify certain.
Ivan, I want to stop you here because your voice
Do you hear me?
is not coming well.
Is it something wrong with the connection?
Yes, now it is better. Yeah, there is something wrong with the connection. Okay.
Do you hear me now?
Now it is better.
Okay. I'll try like this. maybe something is wrong again with the connection. So basically, I think that the courses, I stopped there, that the courses are very well fit. Probably the development and further execution of WBF Business School will identify several different as a market niche and as a market need for fellow entrepreneurs and so on. One of the questions, actually one of the courses that you already mentioned and you asked Professor Rudy about it is European entrepreneurial ecosystem. One of the things that might also be consider courses in other countries, but different systems, African entrepreneurial economic ecosystem.
Ivan, could you please write your question to chat area, because there is really an yeah, nobody hears. Yeah, this is painful. Yes, we stopped. Okay. Is there any question from the audience to Professor Rudy about the course? I think we are planning to run the first course around March or April, isn't it, Rudy? And and anyone who wants to learn more about the course content, please visit WBA Business School and go to content part and download the document from there. And also visit the registration part if you want to register. And you can also check the course prices and alternatives also in the registration part. I think, Rudy, now the floor is yours. Please feel all right to give any message, because you have 8 more minutes.
I would first give the floor to Shevat, because I see he was raising his hand already since a couple of times. We forget him. Shevat, can you?
Just a second. I don't see, but just a second. Who is? Yeah, Jawad. Yeah, please. Sorry.
Unmute.
Yes, Jawad. Jawad Surdash is going to ask a question now.
Yeah.
Could you please unmute Jawad before asking the question? I think he is not in the room now. He raised his hand and then, okay. Yeah, we can talk, and then when he comes, I think he is going to ask the question, or he can write the question.
Yeah, I did not get fully the question which has been raised by Ivan, but he was understood. He was speaking about the ecosystems in Africa as well. I think one of the things that might be interesting as well is that we learn one from another. You know, that if you look what Europe does, we are of course working on ecosystems. We have a quite long tradition in SME policy, an enterprise policy, and entrepreneurship policy. And I'm going to explain the difference between the three, because it's not the same thing. And of course, it might be interesting to benchmark it with other regions. And it might be interesting, as Baibar said, for people that are involved in policy at any level to see what they can do and how they can use enterprise policy in their region. And indeed, it exists. It should exist in every region. And it's something that evaluates, because there have been some research, but not too much research on enterprise policy. And so it's very hard to know what is the best policy. So we have to work on it. And that's one thing I'm going to explain, how to put this in place and how we can measure it. If you speak about incubators, we all know what an incubator is. Definition, I think we've done for 2 hours before we agree on a definition. The second one is, how can you know if an incubator is efficient? What are the criteria? What are the parameters? So these are the kind of things that I'm going to explain. So again, quite practical. And now I see that the question is there from Ivan. I like the one you mentioned about European entrepreneurs ecosystems. Similar course may be considered for different geolocations like Africa, Asia. Europe has great meaning by tradition, impact, and size. So Bypass is the proposal to you to do this,
Yes.
this course for other
Okay.
parts of the world as well.
Okay. Yes, about incubators, he says he is fully agree. As a matter of fact, some years ago, the United States ambassador to EU sent a video message to the opening ceremony of the World Congress of WBIF. And in his message, because yes, he was an ambassador, but he is coming from the VC industry. So he made a comparative analysis between the EU and the US startup ecosystems and investment ecosystem. And he had said Europe doesn't have a startup problem, but it has a scale-up challenge. There are some challenges for scale-ups. This is what he had said. So companies coming to scale-up level are preferring to move to US. Do you agree with this, Rudy?
Well, unfortunately, I agree. And even more, if you are interested, you can find my paper on that topic, which is called The Scale-Up Gap, which has been published last year, where exactly I explain this problem. That in fact, if you look now out of the world, 45% of the startups start in the United States, 35% in Europe. So there's not a big gap on the startup. That's not where Europe is missing the target.
Yeah.
The problem is indeed getting bigger. And we see that of the companies that are very successful, that started in Europe, that got innovation money, startup money, business angel money, out of them, successful, 44% are leaving Europe and scale up. The reasons why I launched last year a program which is called Escalade, European Scale Up Action for Risk Capital, which effectively focus that way and which has as one of the objectives, for instance, to mobilize pension funds to invest in companies that are scaling up. Because if you scale up, risk, and this can be something as risk diversification. So that's one of the things I'm going to explain as well, how we cope with the problem of the scale up gap in Europe. That's only one element just to explain you how it works. And it's a nice illustration.
Yes, I think Jawad came. And Jawad, could you please write your question? Jawad, do you hear us? No, he doesn't hear us. Yeah, I think he is hearing now.
So to conclude, it will be a very practical course, but at the same time, the idea is, as Barbara said, to give insight in the whole thing. It's not to just give a list of subsidies. It's insight in Europe, how and how a company can look into that, because we should not forget Europe is a huge market. Europe is doing public procurement. Europe is doing regulation. So it's a very big animal. And if you understand that animal, it might be fantastic for a starter and hopefully for a scale-up and for any policymaker.
My last, I will ask a last question, Rudy. For example, setting up a company in Germany or in Portugal or in Croatia. I mean, what about the regulation? I mean, startups have to follow different regulations, or is there, I mean, common startup regulation in Europe, in EU?
It's a very difficult question. So you give me 1 minute to explain it. And that's one of the things I'd like to explain, because we did, of course, what you do benchmarking. So we can give you for any country, will tell you what to do to set up your business. And then what we try to see how can you learn from one another? How can Portugal learn from Germany or vice versa, in order to make the life of a company easy. That's what we do. But for the moment, there's no such a thing as, for instance, the European legal structure of a company. There's no something as European limited. So we don't have that legal structure yet. This is one of the projects, and it's in the pipeline as well. But it's not decided for the moment, and there's no perspective for the moment on that. But what we explain is how we can learn from one another, how we can make the life easy. And the stuff and which you're working on is, if you're French and you want to set up a company in Germany or vice versa, it's even more complicated. And these are, in fact, the things we're working on. And that's what I want to explain, how to do it and how to make it easy. And that's part of the course as well, to explain how to do it and how you see the market, what are the pitfalls, because I always stress that it's nice to see opportunities, and that's entrepreneurship. At the same time, you must see the obstacles. And I always take the definition of Machiavelli, which is not the most academic definition. An entrepreneur is the one who sees the difference between an obstacle and an opportunity and tries to turn both into his advantage. That's the basic philosophy.
Yeah, yeah. I think it is great because we hear, for example, Estonia. Uh, it seems, I mean, it is a small country, but very successful in entrepreneurship. I mean, we always hear Estonian entrepreneur startups. They develop a um, invest in Estonia card, something like this. I don't remember now. The Estonian citizenship card online, where companies can, I mean, startups can establish their company. So there are different opportunities and of course challenges in different countries of Europe. I think it will be a good introduction to Europe markets, and then startups and entrepreneurs can decide by themselves.
To give an answer to your question, we have now a study which we know the results by January on the tax compliance cost for every country. So how much does it cost? Not the level of tax, but to be in compliance with all the documents. And then, in fact, you see that Estonia by far is the cheapest. So we can learn from that because.
Yeah. Rudy, thank you very much. Now we completed your session, and you can stay if you like, however you like.